Last couple of days have been very rough for the Donald Trump campaign. Coming out of the DNC, there was the Khan controversy and his continual attacks on the grieving parents of a dead member of the U.S. Armed Forces. You had the Purple Heart controversy yesterday, which didn't need to exist. You have the sexual harassment comments as well, kicking a baby out of the room. And all of that wasn't necessarily enough to piss off some of the leadership of the GOP, but then he decided to attack some of their own. And so Trump, mirroring the language that Paul Ryan used about supporting Donald Trump before his eventual endorsement, told the Washington Post that he was not quite there yet on endorsing Paul Ryan himself in next Tuesday's Wisconsin primary, and that he had never been there with John McCain, who will be on the ballot in primary elections in Arizona later this month. We keep telling you that Donald Trump cannot turn down a good feud, and he never forgets his enemies. And so in this case, Paul Ryan and John McCain, both men who have from time to time been critical of Donald Trump, especially John McCain, he's now doing the same back to them. Trump said that Paul Ryan had sought his endorsement, but that as of now he was only giving it serious consideration. Ryan's campaign responded by saying that neither Speaker Ryan nor anyone on his team had ever asked for Donald Trump's endorsement, which to me seems fairly likely, actually, since I don't know why he would want to deal with him any more than he has to. Now, this is just the latest of a number of scandals and gaffes and missteps and unnecessary feuds that are leaving a lot of the leadership of the GOP, Reince Priebus, the head of the RNC, but also just Newt Gingrich and other influential thinkers on the right that see this campaign as flailing, that see it as unprepared to deal with Hillary Clinton, with the rigors of campaigning, with fundraising and all of that. And so we've got some more quotes from some of those insiders, but they're basically on like campaign suicide watch right now.
And that's a literal quote from one of the insiders, as revealed by NBC News. He said staff suicidal, according to John Harwood. This goes to show you, again, what a loser Donald Trump is. He claims, I'm a great manager, I'm great at business. The 6 bankruptcies, that was genius business move on my part. No. He is grossly incompetent. He couldn't manage his way out of a paper bag. So that's why right now his staff is in open rebellion. His allies, not his enemies, guys like Rudy Giuliani, Newt Gingrich, top allies of his, have to come in and go, hey, Donald, you're acting like a dry drunk. You're a total loser, and we've got to try to bring some sort of sanity in your life. Can you please stop being such a goddamn clown? Because you're an embarrassment. That's who Donald Trump is. So all this talk of like, oh, no, he knows what he's doing, and he's going to do this, and he's going to do that, and we're going to be winning. No, he's losing on such a monumental level because it's not just about his campaign. The Republican Party is worrying that he's going to nuke the rest of the down-ballot races for the Senate, for governor's races, everything. He's going to nuke the whole party. He's going to lose on an epic scale. So we're not the only ones thinking that he's loser Donald. Even his top allies are like, Donald, you're such an unbelievable loser that we've got to do an intervention to save you from yourself and to save us from you.
And he's losing so unnecessary. All he has to do is shut up, and he could probably be beating Hillary Clinton. I saw some reporter got called out. They went to a Hillary Clinton-Tim Kaine rally, and they had a photo. In the photo, you see a crowd, and you see Hillary Clinton and Tim Kaine. And then another reporter who was also there said, yeah, you're lying, because they showed their photo, which was wider. They had literally cropped in to get the entire crowd because it was so tiny. There's very little enthusiasm for this campaign, but still he's down 3, 6, 9 points in some of these polls because, as you said, he's such a goddamn loser. Now, you talked about Rudy Giuliani. That group of the people he accepts around him are trying to figure out who they can have to stage this intervention, which everybody denies is going to happen. And they say that they have to bring in Trump's children because those are basically the only advisors he keeps around him anymore, are literally his own kids, which is partially because he's too stupid to trust experts, and then possibly, as in the Scarborough story about the nukes we were talking about, just dealing with him, how stupid he is, how incurious he is, how insulting he is that he drives away other experts who would otherwise like to have the ear of the potential president. And so I want to tell you a little bit about what launched this story this morning. We alluded to this earlier. A longtime ally of top Trump staffer Paul Manafort, which we've obviously talked about, one of the highest placed officials in his campaign, told CNBC's John Harwood that Manafort is not challenging Trump anymore and is mailing it in. He's one of the heads of the campaign. While the campaign staff is suicidal, top staffers, quote, feel like they are wasting their time on Trump's campaign, CNN reported. NBC News' Peter Alexander tweeted that an anonymous source confirmed it's all true about Harwood's reporting and that the situation is way worse than people realize. Specifically about Manafort, he's frustrated by the real estate mogul refusing to listen to staffers' advice, choosing instead to react out of anger on social media. And in particular, he said, the problem is that Trump watches TV every minute that he isn't actually on his phone, either talking or tweeting. He gets angry at what he sees on TV and reacts. And today, that's a very easy thing to believe because I read the Washington Post interview where 5 times while being interviewed, he interrupted the interview because he was literally watching TV during it and he wanted to talk about the stuff he saw on the screen. It's squirrel, every time, squirrel. He can't just do a goddamn interview.
Yeah, he's a child. So this is amazing because, look, this guy is a debacle. Hillary Clinton's only up by 5 right now. And the reality is, if he wasn't such an idiot, Donald Trump could actually win this thing. I don't want to say easily, that's too strong language. Even with all the crazy things he's done. And I fear saying this, it's okay because he never takes any advice, right? Like
he watches TV, not online.
That's right. So if all he did was just shut up, www.com, right? And did only 2 things. I don't take any money. I don't take any money, and I'm going to get rid of the corruption, and there's corruption, and these establishment guys, I'm going to get rid of them, I'm going to get rid of them, I'm running on my own money. It doesn't even have to be true. You just have to say it, right?
That's not true.
And it's not true, I know. And then secondarily say, Hillary Clinton, Hillary Clinton, Hillary Clinton, Hillary Clinton, Hillary Clinton. He would win the election. But he can't help himself because he is actually a loser. He has no self-control. He doesn't know how to manage anything. And he's a petulant child. He is Joffrey Baratheon.
Yeah.
Secretly Joffrey Lannister. So
that's a spoiler.
Okay. So when he's like, what? I'm going to use my crossbow. I'm going to use my crossbow. I don't care what anybody says. Off with his head. And so that's why he's loser Donald.